Tokyo subway discovery. In 2002, Japan was shocked by a horrific discovery at a Tokyo train station. One of the train cars caught fire due to an electrical fault, and passengers were forced to evacuate the train in a hurry. A few hours later, when authorities began sorting through the luggage left behind by panicked passengers, they found something horrific in one of the bags. A teenage girl with amputated limbs, wrapped in plastic, with small holes for breathing. Her vocal cords had been removed to prevent her from screaming. Remarkably, there were no signs of violence on her. Her health was not in danger. Her body was mutilated, but in good condition. The girl was wrapped in the same plastic used to wrap toys. The number 72 was written in marker on the package with the girl inside, and in the same bag was a notebook with a list of her allergies, a calendar of her periods, and other information regarding her health. The police tried to get information from her about the people who did this to her, but their attempts were in vain. She could neither speak nor write, and had no other communication skills. 6 years later, the 20-year-old woman was finally able to share the events of the past. The woman's name was Kikumi Totoro. She was reported missing in 1999 from school. Her parents believed her dead. Kikumi said that a stranger told her that her parents sent him to pick her up, and she got into his car. The man covered her eyes and splashed something in her face, after which she lost consciousness. She came to in a large, brightly lit white room, in a locked cage with 2 other girls. In the center of the room stood an operating table. Behind it, a man in surgical clothing with an electric saw in his hand, preparing to cut off the leg of the girl lying in front of him. One of her legs had been amputated earlier, and her arm, judging by the bandages, quite recently. The most terrible thing for Kikumi was that along the far wall, she saw girls lying, who had already undergone surgery. Although they were not moving, they were breathing and blinking. After seeing this, Kikumi lost consciousness. She came to on the bed to which she was tied. To her horror, she could not utter a word. She tried to scream in vain, and she also did not feel the fingers on one of her hands. Her left hand was cut off, and the stump was carefully stitched up. She was not alone in the room. The girls lying there had from 1 to 3 limbs amputated, and all were deprived of their voices. Some of them twitched, trying to free themselves from the handcuffs and chains holding them. Others simply looked up and cried. Everything was completely silent. Kikumi says that she lost her sense of time quite quickly, as they were forced to take pills every day. She was fed 3 times a day. The restraints on her upper body were removed, and she was able to eat with her remaining arm. At first, she throws the food on the floor, then picks it up and starts eating. Without being able to communicate with anyone, and seeing no one except the other girls, she begins to lose her sanity. She does not know the current time of day, nor her kidnappers, nor their purpose. Every now and then, one of the girls disappears, returning soon after with 1 limb less. Although the interval between amputations should be several weeks, the count of time is lost. After losing her last limb, her left leg, she was moved to a place she calls the exhibition hall. In the new room, she is still lying in bed. The hall is circular and the air is clean. Along the walls there are platforms. On them there are beds with girls. Next to each one, there is a mark. In the center is an operating table with instruments. Next to it is a cage, at that moment empty. For the first time since her captivity, she sees her captor face to face. He is an elderly man with a gray beard. She sees compassion on his face. He looks like a typical grandfather. There is not a drop of evil in his eyes. He removes the shackles holding her, and she tries to bite him. Apparently, he was prepared for this. He pushes her back onto the bed and attaches a metal plate to her back, which is attached by some mechanism to the back of her head and pelvis. Kikumi did not know that fasteners were implanted in her skull and back, which, when connected to the plate, deprived her of her last ability to move. The man brought a shield about 1.5 meters long, with fasteners and 2 thickenings. He took Kikumi in his arms, and placing her on the shield, secured her plate. The shield with the attached girl was hung on the wall. The old man left the room. The lights in the hall were turned off. Kikumi says that the first night was a real nightmare. From all sides she was surrounded by the sounds of blinking eyelashes, which frightened her more than the loudest scream. She is awake for several days before she manages to fall asleep. After waking up, her face is illuminated. but none of the people walking around are nearby. The faces of the other girls are made up. They are arranged in age order from youngest to oldest. She realized that they had been collected for quite a long time. They all look like typical Japanese girls, with long, dark hair and fair skin. A man returns to the room with a bottle of something liquid inside. He approaches each of them in turn and pours the contents into their mouths. After that, he makes another circle, this time giving them water, and another, checking the condition of the body. The fourth time, he simply admires his collection, fixing someone's hair or powdering. From time to time, 3 girls are selected. Their left arms are cut off, their last limbs, and wrapped in plastic, hidden in boxes that are taken away. When it is her turn, the number 72 is written on her plastic. Through her box, she hears the noise of an engine. Then other people. In a few hours, she will be found. In a few years, her kidnapper will be caught, who will suddenly and incomprehensibly die. The room with the rest of the victims will never be found. Tens of thousands of people go missing in Japan every year. 70% of them are underage girls.